So I'm here with Mike Pettiford, and so what we're going to talk about now is going faster.
Oh, yeah.
So you got Mike Pettiford from Go For It Services. So Mike, we were just talking a little bit ago about going faster, and you've kind of got a list. So let's say you've gone to the track, you feel comfortable at the track, you've got the stopwatch out, done some laps. Here's my lap time.
Okay.
I want to go faster than lap time.
Right.
So what are the things to consider to go faster?
Well, if you wanted to go faster at the least amount of cost and the least amount of time, number one is the driver. Okay.
All right.
That kind of sounds like
Yep.
a commercial. Okay, yes, it's what I do for a living. But honest,
It is important.
if you took two cars and you spent the same amount of money on the driver on one car and kept the car totally stock, and you modified the car the same amount of money, typically the professional driver is going to be faster.
Okay.
So driver is always number one.
Okay.
Number two, traction.
Right. So wheels and tires.
Wheels and tires, because if you can decrease the unsprung weight and increase the coefficient of friction by the laws of physics, you're going to be able to brake harder, carry more speed through the corner, get on the power earlier. All of those things will lower your lap time.
Yeah. And so, and just to kind of build on that, like brakes, your ability, the ability of your car to stop is really determined by your tires. I mean, it doesn't matter how big your brake kit is.
Sure.
If you do not have tires that can actually use all of that extra grip that you're getting from the brakes.
Nobody needs bigger brakes in an ice race.
That's right. That's right. But that's a perfect example. If you have a big brake kit and you're on a frozen lake,
Right.
it's not really going to do much. And,
Sure.
and that's kind of, if you have a big brake kit and an aggressive brake pad, but you have a skinny,
Right.
all-season tire.
With an 800 tread wear rating.
Right. That tire is the limiting
Your limiting
factor.
factor, sure.
But also then you put the car into a corner, the amount of speed you can carry through that corner, it all comes down to the tires.
Right.
I've looked at a car, and I'm pretty sure that the only four things that are in contact with the ground are actually the tires.
That's right.
So that's why they're really important.
And it's such a dramatic difference, especially if the car has a lot of horsepower. And people, I've seen it over and over. You have a car, let's say with 500 horsepower, they go to their engine builder, they pay a lot of money, now the car has 1,000 horsepower, the tires are the same.
Right.
You couldn't hook up the 500, pal.
Right. Well, and when you're talking about going faster on a road course, balance is something that comes up.
Oh yeah.
If you have more tire than you have brake, well, now maybe your braking system is going to be a limiting factor. If you have more brake than you have tire, the tire is the limiting factor.
Right.
If you have more power that completely overruns your tire, the amount of grip that you can use, having that extra power is not necessarily going to be nearly as much of an advantage as if you had, power, braking, suspension that all complement each other.
The car, as you just said, is not going to be balanced, and it's going to be harder to drive.
Right.
Because now you've got all this power and you can't hook it up. And now, when you were used to going full power and the car just hooked up, now all of a sudden I'm sideways.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, and so one note about just improving wheels and tires, the other advantage to that is once you have a really high amount of grip in the tires, but you haven't changed anything else in the car, now you're getting a really good sense of the platform itself.
Right.
You have enough traction now to probably hold whatever power you have and see what the suspension is doing, what the brakes are capable of.
The car will now reveal what it needs.
Right.
Because now you have enough traction to put enough stress on the car to say, okay, now we have a turn-in problem, or now we have an oversteer problem.
Right.
Whereas before, if we were on snow tires, it was sliding everywhere, and what does the car even do?
Right.
Yeah.
We've talked before about interpreting the input of the car, and if the tires are not good, is it not turning in because the suspension is set up wrong, or because I just don't have enough traction up front?
Exactly.
Once you bring the level of traction up very high, then you really find out, well, this is what the car actually does. This is the oversteer and understeer tendencies of the car. And now you can properly start to address the other things.
Yep. So, okay, we've got a good driver.
Yep.
We've got good traction.
Yep.
Now, my favorite modification.
Yes.
More power.
More power, always, yes.
So now, and with more power, you may need better cooling.
Right.
And then you may also need better brakes.
Sure.
Because now you've got good traction, you're really taxing the car, you go 10 miles an hour faster,
Yeah.
you may need more brakes.
Sure.
Perfect quick story, we're at Road
Yeah.
America. This car, Corvette is what I'm racing. This car has had great brakes every other place we raced.
Yeah.
But at Road America, we're getting up to 162 miles an hour. Turn 5 is downhill off camber.
Yeah.
And after 5 laps, I have no brakes.
Wow.
We put on new brakes,
Yeah.
new rotors, we've got the best brake fluid.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to do.
Right.
I'm threshold braking, I'm not savaging the brakes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to spend money on brakes.
Right.
And I spent $6,000 on front brakes alone.
Yeah.
And I went from being able to brake at the 5 and having brakes fade to be able to brake at the 3.
Yeah.
And I could not fade the brakes.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Brakes are one of those things that is kind of sometimes forgotten,
Yeah.
but man,
Until,
until you need it like that. And it's interesting you say that. Just 10 miles an hour of top speed
Oh, yeah.
can make a big difference.
Yeah.
I will say from my own personal experience recently, I went out to High Plains with my new engine that makes a little bit more power, happens to be almost exactly 10 miles an hour faster on the back
Yeah.
straight. And I had brake ducts. I was just still using the same brakes though. Everything worked okay, but driving home I realized I had pretty much nuked everything. I melted the dust boots,
Oh,
blades
yeah.
and pads. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 10 miles an hour when you're talking about
That's a
brakes,
lot.
it makes a lot of
Yeah.
difference.
yeah. And to make sure that when you reach a limit, that you're addressing that.
Yeah.
And in just a track practice situation, you can just do fewer laps. But if you're racing for 45 minutes or an hour,
You don't have a choice.
yeah, you really don't have a choice. You've got to upgrade. If I'm out of brakes in 5 laps, now I become a danger to other people hitting me or me hitting other people, and that's just not acceptable.
Right.
Spend the money because the car is going to cost a whole lot more than $6,000 worth of brakes.
Right. So it sounds like power might lead to number 4,
Brakes.
brakes. Turns out, yeah. So we've talked a lot about that. So you got the stick.
Yep.
Driver's good. More
Yep.
tire, more power.
Yep.
Then it kind of
Then-
brings brakes to highlight.
Yes, and then suspension. And when we say brakes, ducting,
Sure.
pad compound,
Huge difference.
brake fluid type,
Yeah.
steel braided lines,
Yeah.
all of these things are part of the braking system, not just pads, not just rotors and pads, or even
A big
just
brake.
calipers, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gotta be the entire system when you upgrade. Then,
Yeah.
suspension.
Suspension.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
And I mean, it's worth mentioning because there's a lot of aspects to improving braking performance.
Sure.
And it seems like it would be easy. Oh, I just go and I throw in a big brake hit, now my brakes are fixed. It's
Right.
not necessarily
Not
that easy.
necessarily.
You know, pad compound makes a huge
Oh, yeah.
difference. And brake fluid also, you know, like the amount of heat that the fluid can absorb before it starts to boil and it's
Right.
compromised,
Right.
that makes a big difference. But ducting, like
Yeah.
if you're getting air over those brakes to
Oh,
help
yeah.
cool them down, you know, that makes a big difference. And then
Yeah.
to a lesser extent, weight is an important
Sure.
part of it too. Like if you're gonna spend a little bit extra money on a 2-piece rotor that weighs less,
Oh, yeah.
that can actually, you know, long time race, that can actually make a big difference.
Yeah.
So there's more to brakes. I mean, they're not very like popular. Not a lot of people like, hey, I'm going to put on a really cool brake kit. But it makes a huge difference. If you get it all right and get all the pieces of the puzzle,
Right.
it makes a huge difference.
Well, and now we're at number 5,
Yeah.
suspension.
Yeah,
And here's the cool thing.
Yeah.
Better suspension can help you with your brakes.
okay.
In other words, if I can corner faster,
Oh, yeah.
now I don't have to brake as hard.
Absolutely.
And I can carry more speed.
Yeah.
So,
We
yeah.
talked about in one of our other videos about overdriving the car.
Sure.
You know, and one of the aspects is if you're trying to go into the corner too hot,
Sure.
you're on your brakes too much.
Right.
But kind of the reverse of that is what you just said. If
Right.
you are not perceiving how fast the car can go in, maybe you're shaving that extra 10 miles an hour that we talked about off, and you don't have
Unnecessarily.
to.
Absolutely.
Or to highlight the suspension, if you can get the setup of the car right,
Right.
so now you can go in 10 miles an hour faster. That's 10 miles an hour
Right.
less speed that you have to shave.
So you
and
can
then that saves
release
the
the brakes. You can brake either later and less, or release the brakes earlier and carry more speed.
Yeah. And when you're talking about suspension, I mean, just kind of broad strokes. So we have springs and dampeners,
Right.
sway bars,
Yep.
alignment settings,
Right.
various different linkages of the
Bushings,
suspension,
yeah.
bushings.
Sure.
Take some of the deflection out of, various components so that
Sure.
you're not chasing, a rubber bushing that's bending when you don't want it to,
Yeah.
versus like actually in proper alignment or something
Sure.
else. So there's a lot of aspects to suspension. I would actually say probably the hardest thing to tune, I don't know if you'd agree,
Yeah.
but the hardest thing to tune on a car, it's not the engine.
Suspension, right.
It's the suspension, because there is probably more variables with suspension than anything else.
And we get back to having the professional driver.
So we're back to
Someone that can, okay, now we've got all of these things, and we've got someone that can tune the suspension.
Right.
We've got a shock specialist, we've
Right.
got a spring specialist, we've got an alignment specialist.
Yeah.
Now, what do we need the car to do?
Right.
What is the car doing?
Right.
You've got to have somebody that can feel that and articulate it to the people that can make the changes if that's not the driver.
Yeah,
Sure.
and maybe the reason that this is step 5 too is you've increased the power to the point where you're in your target for the class
Right.
that you're running, what have you.
Right.
You've got all the stick, so
Right.
the tires are not the limiting factor.
Right.
You've got the brakes improved so that the brakes can handle what you're throwing at them. Suspension notwithstanding, but now
Right.
you've eliminated all these other variables, so now you can really focus on the suspension
Right.
and figure out the tweaks that you can do to make the car faster,
Right.
improve cornering speed, entry speed, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And then, okay, number 6.
Back to the driver?
No. I mean, always, but yeah.
Yeah.
Lighten up the car.
Oh, wait, sure.
Yeah. Now, okay, you've got all this stuff, or you're doing all this stuff and you still have a braking problem.
Right,
Can we take 100 pounds out of the car?
right,
Can we, now we have to brake less mass.
yeah.
That's less wear and tear on everything.
Sure.
There you go,
Yeah.
Physics 101.
Yeah, weight savings is one of those things that improves the car's performance in every aspect
Yes.
across the board.
Yep.
It improves acceleration, braking,
Yep.
handling, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, so go on a diet.
Yes.
Yeah,
No more pizza.
that's right. That's just saying. Perfect. Well, there you go. You've got 5 easy steps to going faster. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, please drop a like and stay tuned for more Flatirons Tuning Tech Talk.
Go faster.